Hello, my name is Allison Warner, and I am the Chief Editor of Orthodontic Products. Welcome back to In the Sterilization Room with Jackie, where we talk with infection control and prevention expert Jackie Dorst about how to protect your team and your patients amid COVID-19. For over 20 years, Jackie has been a consultant specializing in instrument sterilization and infection control and prevention in the dental setting. She holds degrees in microbiology and dental hygiene and has been a featured speaker at the American Association of Orthodontists and the American Dental Association. Jackie, glad to be back with you.
Hi, Allison. It's good to be here again. We're both getting into our summertime colors because it is warming up in the United States now.
Yep, and we've got the West Coast and the South represented here.
Yes.
Well, it's been a busy week again. So let's talk about a new document put out by the Organization for Safety, Asepsis, and Prevention and DentaQuest last week that has compiled the bulk of the guidance put out by organizations like the CDC and OSHA on how dental and ortho practices should be handling infection control during COVID. What should orthodontic teams know about this document?
Well, Allison, this was published less than a week ago, last Thursday,
Yeah.
and it is a comprehensive document. As you said, it includes all of the government agencies that have been giving us recommendations, from OSHA to CDC to the ADA, the ADHA, the American Dental Hygienist Association, and even FDA in there. All of those agencies, there were 14 infection prevention experts, I should say infection prevention and OSHA safety experts involved in the publication of this. So all of that input from different perspectives, and then looking at each one of the interim guidance documents from all of these government agencies, and then condensing it into one document and make it user-friendly and with usable functional checklist that the orthodontic assistant can take this information and make certain that as they've reopened their practices, they've included all of the safety and infection prevention and sterilization that needs to be covered for safe care for both the orthodontic team and for patients. It gets confusing. I've had many team members and doctors call me and go, well, you know, CDC saying one thing and OSHA saying something else, or CDC said last week and then they changed this week. You and I both talked about that last week, that CDC had looked at that 15-minute wait time, you know, after treating a patient to wait for disinfecting. And then as CDC considered the data and the evidence that was there, they decided really there wasn't enough research to be able to be firm on that 15 minutes, and they withdrew that. So last week we talked about the CDC's document from June 9th, and then it was updated again on June 17th. So there is continually new updates, and having one document where all of the different government agencies are reviewed and the information is put together there, and this is a living document. It's not static. It's not just published that one time and, you know, 3 months from now it'll be out of date, but it'll be a living document. All of the experts that were involved in it will continue to update the OSAP DentaQuest document. And it is available at no charge. It is an open document and it's an editable PDF. So the offices can download it and actually do their own checklist and save that, and that can become part of their infection prevention plan. They should have a written infection prevention plan in their office and part of their OSHA safety. So very useful, timely publication to simplify the huge volume of information that we're all being overloaded with right now.
Right. Well, you mentioned those checklists, but how can an orthodontic practice use this beyond that?
Well, it's a 21-page document, and that seems a little bit long. However, pages 17 to 14 are the heart of the document. That's where those checklists are located. And so an assistant, if they, you know, hey, we started using our air water syringes and at our units, but did we do everything we were supposed to when we reopened the office?
Hmm.
And going back to that checklist, we'll talk about testing, what you needed to do to test the water. Did you need what about shocking, and then the treatments, and then it gives links to more detailed information, whether that would come from CDC or from OSHA on the different topics, hand hygiene, PPE. I was involved in the equipment sterilization and supplies part of it, and it was quite an honor to be part of this group as we researched it all. And I will say that every one of the consultants stepped back from what was immediately on their computer and in front of them and focused all their attention on this document so we could get it out in a timely manner.
Okay, great. Well, this document sounds like, it's a very good resource for orthodontic practices. But with all the changes, where do offices go for trustworthy information?
Well, I would highly recommend that it's best practices, and hopefully, as you were able to add in from the website link for the best practices in infection prevention as you reopen for all the interim guidance. You'll be able to open up that document, and the viewers will have the link to it. So other trustworthy, and I say trustworthy information, we're all going to Zoom meetings and webinars for continuing education now.
Right.
And some of them can be sponsored that maybe lean a little bit more toward one specific product or promote one company, and that's understandable if they're company sponsored. The AAO is the American Association of Orthodontists, is the best resource to go to for orthodontic specific continuing education information. And I have to do a little plug for the AAO right now. I think I did 3 or 4 webinars during closure about COVID-19, how what was being published, and then of course for the AAO virtual meeting. Well, the AAO has scheduled another webinar on OSHA for July the 16th. It'll be midday. 1 o'clock on Eastern time, 12 Central, and as you move across the country with it. And that's going to be focused on respiratory protection, specifically N95 respirators.
Okay.
During the PPE shortage, we just jumped in. If you could get a respirator, you used it. And OSHA has specific safety requirements for employees who are using N95 respirators. We've talked, in a couple of previous sterilization room episodes about proper donning and doffing and doing the seal test for them. Well, wearing a respirator can be physically stressful for the wearer. You get hot, it's hard to breathe through. There's a correct method for putting it on so you do get that complete seal around it. So what OSHA requires, and this has not been waived, we've heard about, during the PPE shortage that some of the OSHA requirements on N95 were waived.
Yeah.
That means the annual fit test. That's all that was waived, not the initial fit test. So OSHA requires for all employees who are wearing, whether it's a filtering face respirator that has been used in industry for particles, dust particles and all, that's still a 95% filtration. So it's like an FFR 95 respirator. An N95 is a medical respirator. It protects both against the microorganisms, and it also protects against the blood splatters and splashes. Right. So OSHA requires, first of all, that the employee have a medical evaluation. And it's a questionnaire. It's about a 3-page questionnaire. Wow. That the employee, do you have asthma? Do you have COPD? Do you have any other health issues that could make it risky for you wearing an N95 respirator? And then if the employee answers no to all of those questions, then they would have the fit test done. And the fit test is to check the seal and make certain that the employee has the right shape N95. If they've got a long, slender face or a round face, they may need a small or medium or a large. And of course, we know the men should not have a beard. Right. Because that would interfere with the seal. So a hood goes over the employee's head with their N95 on, and then a bitter or sweet solution is injected. into
Mm,
there. So it's a complex process. It requires at a minimum 20 minutes to do a fit test, very
oh,
often 30 minutes. So where
okay.
you were asking, about reliable information, where can employees go? 3M, one of the largest world manufacturers of N95
Yeah.
respirators, has
Mhm.
3 excellent webinars, and their information builds one on the other
Mhm.
on their educational forum. You have to sign up for the educational forum, and then
Okay.
you can view those webinars. And that's what I'll be discussing in this July the 16th webinar for the AAO members, and specifically for an ortho office. So you have to have a medical evaluation,
Mhm.
fit test, seal test, donning and doffing instruction, and all of this has to be written up in a comprehensive respiratory protection plan.
Ah,
Just like with the OSHA manual, all of the OSHA coordinators out there that are listening to us and the doctors, you must have a written exposure control plan. Well, that's
right.
exposure to the bloodborne pathogens, right? That's what we've all,
Mhm.
and then a written hazard communication plan. That's the written plan for chemical exposures in the
Okay.
office. Now, the third written plan is a written respiratory protection plan. And as
Ah,
I said, during closure, we just jumped into using N95s in the ortho practices, and many offices don't have that written respiratory protection plan.
right.
They haven't done the initial fit test, and they haven't gone through the medical evaluation. So that's what the details we'll be discussing, as well as aerosol mitigation. There's still a lot to be learned on aerosol mitigation. So that
Yeah.
webinar will cover the respiratory protection. And then
Mhm.
the December webinar on December
Mhm.
1st and December 3rd will be the annual OSHA update for orthodontic offices. And we'll go over all of the exposure control plan, hazard communication plan, and
Mhm.
respiratory protection plan. And that can be the review and
Wow.
for OSHA safety. And
Mhm.
employees must have a review, an update on safety measures once a year for OSHA. So that's orthodontic, trustworthy information specific for the
Mhm.
orthodontic team. I would look at other online and verify that they're creditable information for your
Mhm.
continuing education. And that's going to be a challenge with the dental meetings and the orthodontic meetings being
Right.
canceled this year. We know we had an
Yeah.
AAO virtual meeting because
Mhm.
the meeting in Atlanta was canceled.
Mhm.
Now the American Dental Association meeting has been canceled.
Right.
The California Dental Association, another one of the large meetings, has officially been canceled now. So it looks like there are going to be very few up close and personal live meetings that will be held this fall. And Allison, for many of the doctors and the states that require continuing education for the orthodontic assistants or dental
Mhm.
hygienists working in the offices, many states, half of their continuing education hours that are required have to be classroom or workshop, not
Ah, okay.
online.
Right.
Many state dental boards only allow 50% of that CE to be online. So that's going to be a challenge. I think the dental boards may make allowances because of closure and the meeting
Of
canceled,
course. Yeah.
but we haven't gotten to that point yet. So
Right.
everybody mark your calendar for July the 16th and join me for that written respiratory protection plan.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's a lot of information that practices need to be aware of that it necessitates that separate focus on a respiratory protection plan and just having a webinar devoted to that subject. So that's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
we were all so panicked, I think, with the PPE shortage and the closure,
mhm.
and the orthodontic offices were anxious to get back to work,
Yeah.
to seeing their patients. And there's such a backlog of debonds and
Yeah.
rebonding brackets, and we just wanted to see patients and take care of their needs.
Yeah.
And now that we're coming into a little bit more of a manageable schedule, we've got the basics in place, then we'll fine tune it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, is there anything else that has come out in the last week that practices should know about? What have you been hearing?
Well, we always have that nugget at the end of our video interviews about what has been the crisis in the last 7 days since the last episode of In the Sterilization Room.
Right.
And the crisis now that practices have reopened is employees that are either exposed to COVID-19 or diagnosed as having a COVID-19 infection. And now offices are scrambling and going, what do we do? What do we do? And we've talked about what the CDC guidance is. And CDC, when we go through for dental practices, refers to employee healthcare professionals that are exposed or diagnosed with COVID-19. And we'll bring up that page on the video, if you will, and give all of the viewers a link to that page. Yeah. So CDC basically says, you know, if you're exposed for, say, longer than 30 minutes to someone that you later found out was diagnosed with COVID-19 and you weren't wearing a mask during that time, that you should self-quarantine for 14 days. Or if you do an aerosol procedure and maybe 2 days after you took off that patient's brackets, you did a Devon procedure, and then you do the follow-up call. The front desk calls the patient, says, how was everything? How does it feel now that you've got your braces off? And no COVID-19, you know, have you shown any symptoms? CDC asked us to do that, to require, and they go, oh yeah, 2 days later, I have a fever of 102. Oh, now they've spent time with that with that patient.
Right.
And they did an aerosol generating procedure. They picked up a handpiece with it. So now you've got to go through the triage with an employee about what to do. And offices, they need to find out from their local health department, what are the current recommendations? And that's going to vary depending on how many new infections have been diagnosed. Are you seeing a surge, a new wave of infections in your area? This morning I heard California, Texas, Arizona, and Mississippi were in that high numbers that are arising. So we are going to see an increased number of infections, and different health departments, different states have varied recommendations from maybe a week afterwards to 10 days to 14 days, like CDC has. So you really, you know, the office is going to need to contact their local health department, but you also want to know a place that you can go look at. And one of my reliable resources for human resource, reliable sources for human resource information has been Bent Erickson Consultancy. And I think we can put in the link there, because they do have a page of frequently asked questions about employees who are exposed. And when you look at what are the human resources laws that govern this, it can be varied, such as, did the office participate in the Families First business arrangement with it, the FICRA, because that determines if that employee has to be off for 14 days and quarantined, they don't come to work, do they get paid? Will unemployment pay them? Or will it have to come out of their PTO? And that's not my area of expertise, human resources law. And Bent Erickson is a reliable, long, nationwide consultancy that I've always referred my clients to. And as I said, they're nationwide, but they will still provide the information specific for each state. And that's what we need. So when you go to that page on frequently asked questions, you can click on the link that'll take you to the health department or to the state laws with it. So you do need trustworthy resources. And I know some of my offices have even contacted their attorney that they have for the orthodontic practice when they run into a situation like this, to say, you know, what are our state laws? What do we need to do? So it's complex. There's a lot of different government agencies that are involved in our orthodontic practices.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, again, I think this is really good information for our viewers. So thank you, Jackie, for being with us again this week.
Well, everybody be safe as you continue to take care of all of those beautiful orthodontic smiles, and we'll meet again for a future In the Sterilization Room episode. Thank you, Allison, and thanks to Orthodontic Products.
Well, we will be back next week for the next episode of In the Sterilization Room with Jackie. In the meantime, be sure to keep up on the latest orthodontic industry news or check out past episodes of In the Sterilization Room. at orthodonticproductsonline.com. Until next time, take care and be safe.